And I'm going to start with some thoughts and a review on the new Lucha Underground show, which I was able to catch this past week. I caught it online, although it is airing on a Spanish language station here where I am on Saturdays at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's all in Spanish. So, which is important because, at least on this first show, there's a lot of dialogue and cutscenes that set up some of the stories that I think would have been lost on me had I only watched the Spanish language version. So I was happy that I caught the first run airing online. And it was a fun hour of wrestling, I have to say. It was unlike any other wrestling show I've ever seen before, which I suppose is a good thing, because one of the things I think that we're all sick and tired of these days is just the same old formulaic style from WWE, which TNA uses, and almost every wrestling company uses, right? Sometimes you just watch this and you're just begging for something different. Well, that's what they gave you at Lucha Underground. It's definitely different. I will say that. The setting may remind some people of the old Wrestling Society X show on MTV, but yeah, this is different than that. This is not the same kind of show. And I liked it. It was interesting enough that I do plan on checking it out again in week 2. So that's a good sign. They've obviously got money behind it. The production is very professional looking, very slick. Probably the best production of any wrestling show outside of WWE. I mean, it's got a film look to the way that it's shot. Lots of different camera angles. They have an overhead ceiling camera. This was their first episode, and they already have better production values than TNA, which is on a much better cable station and has been around for 12 years. The announcers for the show were Matt Striker and Vampiro. You know, you could tell Striker was kind of in his comfort zone. He's no longer under the thumb of Vince McMahon doing Vince McMahon style of WWE announcing. He's a wrestling history buff, and it showed through his commentary. Vampiro, by the way, looks nothing like the Vampiro that you may remember from WCW. And I don't watch a lot of Mexican wrestling, whether it's AAA, CMLL, or whatever. I'm not even sure what organization most recently that Vampiro's had an affiliation with. So my familiarity with his work, by and large, is from the WCW days, which I know was only a small part of his career. Was never a huge fan, but I was kind of taken aback when I saw how different he looked and much older. Dario Cueto is the storyline owner, or I guess as they call him on Twitter, the proprietor of the Lucha Underground organization. And the story of the show is that whoever impressed him the most at the end of the night would get a $100,000 grand prize. They would get $100,000 in cash handed to them, which he had in a briefcase. He almost came off looking and acting like a drug lord on this show. That's what he kind of reminded me of. And let's be honest, in a dingy-looking warehouse like the one they filmed this in, you got a guy with $100,000 stashed in a briefcase. Okay, there's going to be drugs involved. I don't give a shit what you say. He actually called the building his temple, so that's what they call it. Like, TNA used to have the Impact Zone. This is their temple. Small building, very rundown look to it. That was the look they were going for. Only a few hundred people, if that. So at least they have that in common with TNA. The heel owner shtick, I think you don't need me to tell you this. The heel owner shtick in wrestling is as played out as it gets. But I have to say, the guy playing the heel owner, he is awesome in the role. He's fantastic. I'm pretty sure he's a real actor, and it really does show when he's on screen. Just his performance, his presence, his delivery, the way he comes off. He comes off like a real actor playing this, almost like a drug lord. Again, I keep going back to that drug lord comparison. He looked like something out of an action film with like Steven Seagal or something like that. That's kind of how he came off to me in this show. And they had a segment with him sitting in his office talking to Conan at one point with dramatic music in the background, and it looked like something out of a Spanish language soap opera. And I was so into it at one point, I actually wanted it to continue. I was kind of like, no, don't cut back to the ring. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I actually wanted to see them continue on with this like it was a real TV show, like a TV drama. That's how good the guy was and how well shot this whole thing was. Is it campy? Yes, it is campy, but I don't know. There were parts of it that maybe should have come off as even more campy to me, but I actually kind of got into it. It's kind of hard for me to explain why that is. Show opened with Blue Demon Jr. and Chavo Guerrero in it was an okay match. Blue Demon beat Chavo by submission with a sharpshooter armbar combo. Blue Demon is the old grizzled vet, 48 years old. Chavo, Chavo's good. I'm not going to say Chavo's a bad wrestler because he's not. But I have never been a huge Chavo Guerrero fan, so I can't say I was overly excited watching this match. Up next was the vignette that I mentioned with Dario, Cueto, and Conan in Cueto's office. He says that he has signed the hottest free agent, one of the hottest free agents in wrestling, named Johnny Mundo, who's the former John Morrison. And he wants to test him against one of Conan's boys, this guy Prince Puma, who is the former Ricochet. And that was our main event for later in the show. We then got a training video for Prince Puma, with Conan giving us some backstory into who he is. The character development. I mentioned this because the character development on the show was another thing I really liked about it. I really got a good sense of who each of these guys were. And this is only the first show. And so they've got to make you care about these guys somehow, right? They can't just throw them out there. Here's Wrestler A against Wrestler B, and oh, by the way, one of them is a former WWE guy, so therefore you should watch. They actually went out of their way to explain who they were, why we should care or not care about them. But just give us a little bit of insight into who these guys are. And they did. I like that. I like that aspect of it a lot. And they did that with the key guys on the show, and girls. They then had a package on Sexy Star. She talked about being abused and contemplating suicide, but then she discovered Lucha Libre, and the mask saved my life, she said. And now she wrestles as an inspiration to every girl out there not to give up. Every woman is sexy, and every woman is a star. Simple, to the point. Now I know what this woman is all about. She comes out for an intergender match against a dude that calls himself Son of Havoc, rocking quite the masterful beard. Had I not been told, I never would have guessed that it was Matt Cross under a mask. Looked nothing like him. He gets on the mic. What I didn't like was how they dubbed over his voice. They made him sound like Nails whenever he would cut a promo on the Big Boss Man. It sounded goofy. He said he's not fighting a woman, she should just leave, take the count out. And she teased agreeing with him, and she stepped outside. And then as soon as he turned his back, she rushed into the ring and attacked him. He threw her down a few times. They had a very brief match. He tried for a lion salt, missed. She caught him with a standing Hurricane Rana. I thought for sure she was going over here since she got the video package and Son of Havoc did not. But then he caught her with a backbreaker and hooked the tights and got the win. So he beat a woman. But the story is he had to hook the tights to do it. And you know what?